All right, 7:30 on Tuesday, January 14th, and we'll call the regular council meeting to session. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Bellin?
Here.
Mr. Barr?
Here.
Mr. Scafidi?
Here.
Ms. McPherron?
Here.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Here.
Mr. Fury?
Here.
Mrs. Walker?
Here.
All right, and next up, please rise for the invocation of pledge of allegiance with Mrs. Walker.
O God, from whom all power comes, by whose divine will all must abide, we thank you for our civil liberties and freedom, for our opportunities and our privileges. We beg of you to bless, assist, and enlighten this council and representatives of the city of Twinsburg. May we prove worthy of the confidence placed in us by our fellow citizens. May we be just and upright in their thinking, honest in all of our actions, and ever be guided by a true conscience in the legislation we propose or vote upon. In your mighty name we pray. Amen.
Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next up is approval of the minutes from the December 10th, 2019 meeting. I know Mrs. Collins sent out a update to those minutes. I think it was just another sentence or two about Ms. McPherron's comments. Everybody had a chance to read them? Any questions, comments?
I make a motion that we adopt the minutes as revised.
I'll second.
Mr. Fury makes a motion. Mr. Scafidi seconds. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Ms. McPherron?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
All right, minutes are approved as amended 7-0. Next is awards and presentations.
There are none.
Next is audience participation.
Yes, first we have Sheila Williams.
Good evening, everyone. Happy holidays belated. Welcome back, and it's all good. I want to talk about Summit County Public Health. We elected new officers. We're moving forward with our 2020 budget. We put in a retaining reservoir to catch a catch basin because we were having some flooding issues, and they were very serious because the building sits down and Market Street sits up. So it looks like a big, huge pond out the back window, but our hope is that it will stop the flooding and the storm sewer backup that we were having. And that's one thing that we're working on. We've got some things that we're working on with the infant mortality. Still haven't gotten any updated information on the lawsuit with the opioid. It's still kind of being tweaked, and I'm not sure if we're going to get some money, but we're still on the lawsuit list. So I wanted to tell you that. Kent State has changed its name. I think we said that last time, to Twinsburg Academic Center. And we have a very special presentation for Martin Luther King Day on Thursday, the 23rd at 12 o'clock. A lady by the name of Julie Martin will be the guest speaker, and Margaret Bernstein, who used to be with the Plain Dealer, wrote a book called I'm Better Than That about her son, Eric Russell. He was bullied and taunted in the South Euclid City School District. And the adversity and the endurance that he faced, she'll be discussing. He died like a year later after that incident. But in the yearbook, they put Blackie underneath his name for the cross-country team. And instead of retaliating, he said, I'm better than this, and I'm going to take the higher road. So that's what the book is about. So she'll be discussing all the things that happened. And I would encourage anyone, if you can, to come to it. It's a very powerful story of grace and mercy that we all can take a look at in our own lives. Now I'm going to talk about my community. I've sent a request to the mayor, and he told me that he'll get back to me on it, but I want to talk about federal and state funding monies and my concern with misappropriations of that money, not from the city. So let me say that, not from the city, but in a project that I'm involved in. I'm very concerned that this money will be misappropriated. So I have sent something in writing concerning that, and so I'll wait to see what happens with that. And then do we have a new building director? Someone that's,
Yes.
could I have a name?
Sure, Keith Fox.
Okay, because I'll be in contact with him about that also. And I wish you a good 2020. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Michael Turl.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Michael Turl, 9930 Forest Lake Drive, Twinsburg, Ohio. I'm going to speak on the incident on Christmas night of Police Captain Sotomayor. It's kind of hard to condense 45-minute police stop into 5 minutes. I'm going to try to get through this as quick as I can. I got some transcripts, but I am asking for some liberties possibly with our council president on your gavel as you see fit. I will respect whatever orders. This is a very delicate subject that needs to be addressed and needs to be gotten out there. I'm not going to speak for myself until the end. I'm going to let Officers Hunter and Waltz and Mr. Sotomayor himself speak from the tape. With what I could transcribe in the last 3 hours, I got up to about 30 minutes. There's about 15 minutes that I didn't get to. Officer Hunter, what's going on tonight? Sotomayor, not much, ma'am. Where are you coming in from? Cleveland. Were you at a party or Sotomayor? No. Hunter, why did you pull over to the side of the road? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds he paused. Not sure. Why are you pulled over to the side of the road? 5 seconds, not sure. Officer Hunter, you're not sure why you're pulled over? How much have you had to drink tonight? Not much. Not much at all? What did you have? I'm just getting tired and pulled over. Hunter, okay, you just told me 2 seconds ago you didn't know what you were doing and now you're tired. Now how much have you had to drink tonight? Sotomayor, nah, I was getting tired and I wrote inaudible because that's what it was. He muttered. Have you got your driver's license, registration, and insurance on you? Yes, I do. Is this your car? Yes. I'm believing at this point is when he flashed his badge because Officer Hunter's tone became a little bit more serious. Are you carrying? Yes. You're carrying? Where's the weapon at? On my hip. On your hip? Do me a favor, put your hands on the steering wheel for me. Officer Waltz comes on scene at 1:50. Waltz, how bad is he really? Hunter, do you want to go talk to him? Because he was really rough. Like I said, he popped out of the car and couldn't even get back in. Inaudible, redacted 14 seconds. So I guess they were giving some addresses or whatever information that we don't need, which, sincere, yeah, I'm good with that. 317. Hunter, where are you coming from tonight? Sotomayor, Cleveland. Where in Cleveland? Were you working? Were you at a holiday party? Where were you at? No, ma'am. I was at Cleveland. Then I started taking notes of all the trucks that are flying by here. There's a reason I'm going to bring this up. 2 big 18-wheelers or something of very high speed, very loud, blows right past the body cam. 355, Waltz. Listen here, all right? I understand you're coming home. We can smell alcohol in the car. Let me finish because Sotomayor's trying to interrupt him. We're trying to give you a break here. You're driving with alcohol in your system with a gun on your hip. We're getting calls all about you. You're driving up the freeway on the shoulder. You're trying to find your way home. I don't want to have to put you in handcuffs and take you to jail. I mean, you know what's going on here, right? I don't want to have to do this, but if you don't give us a straight answer to get you home safely, because you're not driving away from here right now, it's not going to happen. Jump to 448. Waltz, first thing I'm going to do is disarm you. I'm going to back up here for a second. Okay, we go from 355 to 448. There's a period of time where Waltz kind of goes away. First thing I'm going to do is disarm you from your weapon, okay? And then you come get it when you're sober. I don't want to have to take you to jail for something that,
1
you
minute.
know what I mean. I'm guessing you'll be on the force for a while. Sotomayor, inaudible again. Are we going to play games here, Waltz? Because I'm trying to work with you here. Sotomayor, calls his wife at 7:35. This is on the tape, this is not the time, okay? At 11 minutes, we're going to have you hop out. Where's your gun at? On my hip. At 12:20 on the tape, Hunter takes the keys. At 12:40, she says, I don't play favorites, but that's bad. 14:13, Hunter says, I'd rather turn him in. I mean, I feel like I don't agree with it. I mean, he's hammered. He's hammered. 15:40, Hunter, he needs to be held accountable. I don't play favorites, but being in that position you're in, it's absolutely unacceptable to be driving. He hopped out as soon as I pulled up behind him, and then the firearm on top of it. 17:40, Officer Hunter calls and
Time.
leaves a message with Cleveland Police. 21:38, she calls, leaves a second message. In that message, she says, it is clear that he is highly intoxicated. Multiple calls were made on him.
Okay, Mike, I'll give you some leeway. There's another
I'm going to wrap
20
it up.
minutes.
Actually,
Please
this
wrap
is
it
the
up.
last
Thank
of
you.
what I have here. There's
Thank
no
you.
one behind me, and Mrs. Williams only took 2 minutes as opposed to a normal 14. So, thank you, I appreciate that. She calls and leaves her second message. 21:38 on the tape. She left the second message at 23:52. Hunter says, your ride's here. 24:55, she says to Officer Waltz, you got to watch him there. He was just spazzing out there. He knows it. She made a third call and a fourth call. That's as far as I could get. Some of the other highlights on the tape were when they went into the car and they found an open container in the vehicle. And then I also remember, this is from my memory, and Officer Hunter and Waltz are in the cruiser, and she says, oh my God, he's peeing on the side of the car now. And then it's almost like a comedy routine. Then she goes and gets in the car to move the car, and she says, I think he urinated in his seat, and I'm sitting in it. Now, this whole thing went on for 44 minutes is the tape. We had 2 officers on the side of the road for 44 minutes, multiple vehicles flying by at highway speed. I've talked to more than a few officers. You know, a good friend of mine, Gary Ennis, was a police officer in Macedonia, got hit while he was on a traffic stop on the side of the road. We could have had a drunk driver or a texter come flying down the road and kill all 3 of these people over this, drunken idiot. This man drives through our town every day, twice. What I want to leave you with here, I'm surprised there is not sheer outrage on the part of council. Absolute, especially in 1 or 2 or more members. I'm going to leave it at that. But this man drives through our town every day. How would you feel if in 2 weeks, 3 months, a year, this guy goes out and gets hammered again, comes flying through our town, and kills your wife, your kids, any of us? Where's the accountability at? This man did not learn a lesson. This man just had his plea bargain, or not his plea bargain, but he had his arraignment today, and he pled not guilty. And I'll guarantee you the whole thing's going to get kicked out because there's absolutely no proof that this man was intoxicated.
All right, thank you, Mr. Turtle.
There
Appreciate
needs
it.
to be accountability on this at some level, because Mr. Sotomayor was not accountable, the officers are not held accountable, our police chief is not being accountable, and our safety director is not holding any accountable. He's been radio silent for this whole time. So someone needs to be held accountable, because is this the first time this guy got drunk? Is it the first time maybe he got caught? What's going to happen the next time?
Thank you,
very
Mr.
much.
Trump.
I appreciate your
Thank you.
liberty.
That is all we have for tonight.
No, thank you. Thank you, but no. Thank you. Is there anybody else, Sharon?
There is none.
No, okay. Okay, now we're going to move on to council communications and reports. Ms. McFerrin.
I have none. None of my committees have met. The upcoming meeting, January 16th, ARB will be meeting at 6 p.m. here. On January 21st, the Golf Advisory meeting will be held at 6:30 here. And on February 27th, Parks and Rec will be meeting at 6:30. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Fury.
Thank you. I had the opportunity to attend the Board of Zoning Appeals on January 8th. Appeal 08219 was put on hold for the foreseeable future as the applicant was challenged to come up with a hardship. On January 13th, I attended the CIC meeting. We discussed our financial plans, preliminary budget, the downtown redevelopment district the council will have to be involved in on whether we have, how many historic sites we have to put those 10-acre parcels together. And our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, February 3rd at 6 p.m. There'll be a Finance Committee meeting on the 21st at 6 p.m. And there'll also be CPR certification training on February 22nd at the Twinsburg Community Center. There'll be 2 classes, a morning class from 9 to 12, an afternoon class from 1 to 4. It's open to the public. There'll be more information to come. It's $5 if you just want to learn CPR. If you need the certification, as several nurses have used this to get the certification they need, it's a $25 for that certificate. And again, that's February 22nd, and it'll be held at the Twinsburg Community Center. That's all I have. Thank you.
Quick question for Mr. Fury. Did you say finance was on the 21st?
Thought we had a meeting on the 21st.
Or did you mean on the 28th?
Work session.
There's
We
a
have a work session on the
Meeting
21st.
Okay.
Yes.
So we have a work session on the 21st.
Finance work session.
Yes.
Okay. But there's a finance meeting on the 28th.
28th.
We do have a
Yes.
finance meeting
Got
on
it.
the 28th.
At
Thank
6
you.
p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fury. Mrs. Stoffer.
My committees did not meet.
Mrs. Walker.
Good evening. I met with the Twin State Committee. It was last Wednesday. And the only thing about meeting at this place, I don't like it. It used to be our first jail. So I don't like meeting in a jailhouse. But anyway, their theme for 2020, it's the Roaring Twenties, Twinties.
That's cute.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Yes, that's all I have.
Mr. Scafidi.
Thank you and good evening. I hope everybody had a good holiday season. I trust that you did. And it's good to be back to work here and ready to go for the next year. Just a couple things that I have. My committees, of course, haven't met. The next meeting of the Planning Commission will be on February 3rd at 7 o'clock right here in the council chambers. During the December, since our last meeting, there's been quite a few activities around town, and I attended a couple of those. Number one was the holiday party for the seniors. And once again, the Parks and Rec Department, I want to give a shout out to them, and the seniors did a great job. It was a great event, and of course enjoyed by everyone. Also, we had our first New Year's Eve party up at the clubhouse in the new banquet center, and that turned out to be on New Year's Eve a very nice event as well. So shout out again to Parks and Rec and to seniors for all that they do and the events that they plan and put on. Other than that, I do have one more thing. We had, I don't know how many of you know this, but we have a cable advisory board. And we have a cable advisory representative that typically would come every once in a while and report what's going on with Spectrum. Well, unfortunately, last night, his name is Tim Conroy. Unfortunately, he passed away last night. So I just want to give say to his family and his grandchildren and his children, send my sincerest condolences to Tim Conroy's family. He was a great guy, and he will definitely be missed by all of his neighbors I know, and by all of those that have known Tim. He was a very good guy, and it's with a heavy heart that I say that he's passed away. I really will miss him myself. And so I guess that might be some order of business that we may do in the very near future, would be to replace him on the Cable Advisory Board. Other than that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barr.
Just wishing everybody a belated Happy New Year here. None of my committees have met, and as Mr. Fury stated, the next Finance Committee meeting is here Tuesday, the 28th at 6 p.m. before our next council meeting. And that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And none of my committees have met. Again, Finance is the 21st. There's a work session, and then on the 28th, prior to the next council meeting. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. A couple announcements. This year, the State of the City, typically that's done in a breakfast event along with the Chamber. I believe the Chamber's still going to be involved. We're going to actually do it in an evening this time. And so it'll be free to all the residents. And hopefully, be scheduled at a time that is easier for them to come and attend. So it's going to be at 6 p.m. on February 20th. So we're going to have a website set up. We're getting it arranged now for registration, so people will be able to register. So it will be limited to at least a couple hundred people. So we'll see what the turnout is. And hopefully it's something that's well attended, because I know in the past it's always challenging for residents to try to make a morning State of the City during a weekday. So a little change this year. Something that's posted in Parks and Rec is we're hiring all our summer positions. So check our website. So if you're looking for camp counselor, lifeguards, those kind of things, we're already getting a lot of applications in. So check that out. CIC, we have a potential resident vacancy on the CIC. We have all of our businesses and residents that are up right now, and also for council. Council serves 2 years on the CIC, and so the new council representatives for the CIC will be Bill Fury, Maureen Soffer, and Sam Scafidi. So looking forward to them being part of that. And then lastly, I want to address the incident that occurred on Christmas night that involved an intoxicated Cleveland police captain. First of all, I just want to say that I'm really proud of our police department and the work that they do on a daily basis. Being safety director, I have constant communication with both our police and fire, and if there's ever anything going on in the city, there's no one else that I'd want standing by my side than the officers that we have currently carrying badges in this community. On Christmas Eve, Christmas evening, we allowed a Cleveland police officer to secure a safe ride home because it was apparent that he had too much to drink. He was not charged that evening, and he was allowed to leave with his wife. Even though he was later charged, that decision that occurred that evening, I think, has negatively impacted the public trust in our police force and caused tension in our community. I've had numerous conversations with council regarding this incident. They've expressed both anger and disappointment in what happened that night. As public safety director, I want to apologize for the decisions made that evening and just assure the community that it will not happen again. The officers involved are really good officers. They are. I'm glad they're part of this police force, and I would hire them again any day. I know they're remorseful for what happened that night, and I think both them and the department as a whole has learned a lesson from that incident. I think all of our police officers are very loyal and dedicated to serving and protecting this community. And I know I speak for the entire department when I say that any lost confidence in our police force from the residents, we hope can ultimately be restored. I know the chief has spoken on this, and I know the residents are concerned, but I think this is something that we've dealt with internally, and hopefully the community can move on from it. And that's all I want to say on it. Department head reports. Chief Morgan.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chief.
Chief?
For the month of December and wrapping up the 2019 year, we had 258 calls for service, which brought us to a total of 2,981. That shows about a 5% increase over the previous year's run volume. We completed 8 fire inspections and 2 fire investigations. We also had 16 hours of public education that contacted about 325 people. We also completed 61 training sessions, totaling 246 hours of training. Some points of interest. Again, in December on the 14th, we hosted Breakfast with Santa, and that was, again, a great event, and we want to thank Parks and Rec for including us in that event. And then on the 15th, we had the Santa Run, and we want to thank all of our volunteers and the vendors that helped support that effort. On January 4th, we had the regular monthly testing of the weather warning sirens, and we did have issues with the siren at the high school and the one at the golf course, and those have been checked by the service department since. But it does bring up a discussion that we probably will be getting into in the not too distant future, is the system as a whole, whether it makes sense for us to maintain it or if we find other more modern means of contacting our residents. So that'll be forthcoming. On the staffing side of things, we added Hope Kozad as a part-time member to the roster. And we also recognized just on the 9th, the last day, work for Jim Wolf, firefighter for almost 21 years, who retired. And we have made an offer for his replacement, and we hope to have word on that within the next week or so as he goes through his final evaluations. And finally, the fire department's been really busy with implementing a new records management system. The one we used previously, Firehouse ESO, is going away in the not too distant future, so we have selected a replacement, and we're working on moving over applicable records and trying to just outfit the program to operate to our needs. And so a lot of efforts being going into that at this point, but we're already seeing parts in this program that we like a whole lot better than the legacy program we're stepping away from. So
Awesome.
that's my report.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Please.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Speak in.
I don't know, wait. Who do you want to- So you said 5% increase in calls over the previous year?
Yes.
So is there a breakdown of where that mostly is coming from, or?
Well, we recognize about a 4% increase in regular EMS calls, a 6% increase in fire calls of a fire nature, and then there was a 14% increase in what we call rescue calls, and that's generally car accidents. You're welcome.
Thanks, Chief.
Colette?
Good evening, everybody. Just a little bit of a year-end HR report I put together today. In 2019, we had 14 full-time hires. Some of those were part-time employees who had went to full-time. We had 71 part-time hires and over 100 seasonal hires. Our full-time total separations were 14, and 6 of those were retirements, so that was a total turnover ratio of 7.7%. We had 23 workers' comp claims. 4 of them involved any kind of lost time. 19 of them were medical only. Our current staff full-time is 181, part-time staff is 215. And just for fun, I run the average age of our full-time staff is 45.35 years, and the part-time staff is 27.97 years. Our seasonal hiring ads are out, as the mayor mentioned. The summer youth camp leaders and the volunteers, those positions get filled kind of quickly, so anybody who's thinking of applying, I would encourage you not to delay. We're currently in negotiations with our police and fire department contracts. We're still waiting for our final numbers for our healthcare renewal. Hopefully those are going to come in later this week. And our open enrollment meetings for our benefits are in February 4th, 5th, and 6th. Civil service-wise, November and December, there was no agenda, so there was no meetings. Their next meeting is scheduled for February 13th. And then IT-wise, the audio enhancements for this council chambers are due very soon. All the little details have been worked out on that issue, so those should be coming really soon. Help desk is very, very busy with for IT, and then some of the Wi-Fi upgrades that they're going to be doing in various parts of the building and the city. So that's it.
Thanks, Claire.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Chief?
Good evening. During the month of December, the City of Twinsburg Communications Center generated 2,260 calls for service among the Twinsburg Police and Fire Departments and the Reminderville Police and Fire Departments. The total for the year was 29,427 calls. Officers arrested or cited 112 suspects into court on 169 different charges. Officers responded to 4 overdose-related incidents. One unfortunately resulted in the death of a 20-year-old female. Officers issued 142 written warnings and 24 parking citations. We investigated 38 traffic crashes, of which 7 were injury crashes, 2 were on the private property, and none were fatal. I'd like to take this time to recognize Officer Dan Fido for another very, very successful Shop with a Cop. Well over, I think it was 85 kids taken for Shop with a Cop, and it's just amazing every year what he does. And also to thank VMS. I'm sure everybody saw how they wrapped the SWAT van this year. It was very, very sharp looking, and really proud of those efforts to help those kids in our community. So, and that's all I have tonight.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. All right. Sarah?
Good evening, Council. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So 2019 income tax revenues came in very good. We ended at just above $23.5 million. We haven't seen those kind of numbers in quite a few years, so that was great. Part of that was from a large net profit tax return that we were not expecting, so we hadn't budgeted for that. It really helped out. For our audit, it has been released for 2018. It's available on the State of Ohio's website, and it's now on the city website too, yes. So if anybody wants to take a look, we'll go over the State of Ohio indicators at our Finance Committee later on this month. And then in Finance, we're just working on closing out the year and opening up 2020. It's a busy time.
Thank you. Sarah, is there any particular reason why the audit takes so long to be released?
So the audit was turned into the State of Ohio back in July.
Okay.
But the city doesn't really have any control over when the State of Ohio then turns around and releases it.
Mhm.
They didn't ask for any changes to the financial report, so I couldn't really tell you
Okay.
what the delay was, but they're just doing their due diligence.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
That's it this evening.
All right. Next, we're on to legislation. First up is ordinance 01-2020.
An ordinance confirming the mayor's appointment of David M. Maestros as law director for the city of Twinsburg pursuant to city charter and declaring an emergency.
I'd like to make a motion to put ordinance 01-2020 on its third and final reading and declare it an emergency. May I have a second?
I'll second. Yield.
Ms. McFerrin seconds. Discussion?
The reason for the emergency is the charter mandates that that the mayor have council approve his law director choice and his finance director choice after a new election. So this is his recommendation, and we need to do it in emergency, so it takes effect as soon as possible.
Any other discussion? Shannon, please call roll.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes?
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Emergency passes 7-0. Now I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 01-2020 as an emergency. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Stoffer seconds. Discussion. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes?
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Ordinance 01-2020 passes 7-0 as an emergency. Congratulations, Mr. Maestros.
Thank you.
Next up is ordinance 02-2020.
An ordinance confirming the mayor's appointment of Sarah Bucci-Gross as the finance director for the city of Twinsburg pursuant to city charter and declaring an emergency.
I'd like to make a motion to put ordinance 02-2020 on its third and final reading and declare an emergency. May I have a second?
I second.
Mrs. Walker seconds. Discussion?
It's basically the same housekeeping language, council affirming the mayor's selection of a finance director after an election per the charter.
Any further discussion? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Emergency clause passes 7-0. Now I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 02-2020 as an emergency. Is there a second?
I'll second. Yield.
Mr. Scafidi seconds. Discussion? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Ordinance 02-2020 passes 7-0 as an emergency. Next is Resolution 03-2020.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the Legal Defender's Office of Summit County, Ohio, to provide representation for indigent defendants.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 03-2020. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Fury seconds. Discussion?
This is an annual housekeeping or resolution that we do so that we can pay for legal defender fees of $170 per case for the county or those who we arrest and send to county that need that service.
Any further discussion? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Resolution 03-2020 passes 7-0. Next is Resolution 04-2020.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Horvath Electric Incorporated to provide tax incentives under the terms and conditions of the Twinsburg Occupancy Program.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 04-2020. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Fury seconds. Discussion?
This is a top agreement. It allows Horvath Electric to take 25% off of the income tax generated by the new employees that they plan on, or the new monies they generate by utilizing this building. So, it's,
Any further discussion?
I mean, it's 5 years.
It's a 5-year period.
5 years.
Mhm.
Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Resolution 04-2020 passes 7-0. Next is Resolution 05-2020.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Tinkers Creek Watershed Partners Incorporated.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 05-2020. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Yield.
I'll vote.
Mrs. Stoffer seconds. Discussion?
This is an extension of a current contract.
Any further discussion? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Resolution 05-2020 passes 7-0. Next is Resolution 06-2020.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to extend stormwater management services memorandum of understanding with Summit County combined with General Health District for 2020.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 06-2020. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Barr seconds. Discussion?
This is very similar to Resolution 05. It's just requesting a one-year extension at the recommendation of the engineering department and something that we typically do every year.
Any further discussion? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Resolution 06-2020 passes 7-0. Next is Ordinance 07-2020.
An ordinance accepting the bid of S.A. Communal Company Incorporated for the design and installation of wet sprinkler system at the fire station and declaring an emergency.
I'd like to make a motion to put Ordinance 07-2020 on its third and final reading and declare an emergency. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. McFerrin seconds. Discussion?
The reason for the emergency is we have a grant for $80,000 and $8,000 out of capital improvement to install a wet sprinkler system in Fire Station 1. The reason for the emergency is we don't want to wait 30 days, we want to do it as soon as possible. Thank you.
Yeah, getting that grant is awesome. Congratulations. That's outstanding.
Mhm.
Any further discussion? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Emergency clause passes 7-0. Now I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 07-2020 as an emergency. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Stoffer seconds.
Oh, did I something?
No,
again?
no,
I'm
that's fine.
sorry.
Discussion. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Ordinance 07-2020 passes 7-0 as an emergency. Next up is ordinance 08-2020.
An ordinance authorizing the purchase of a 2020 Pierce fire engine through Finley Fire Equipment to be used by the fire department and declaring an emergency.
I'd like to make a motion to put ordinance 08-2020 on its third and final reading and declare an emergency. May I have a second?
I'll second. Yield to Mrs. Walker.
Mrs. Walker, seconds. Discussion.
This is,
Go ahead.
this is a fire truck that has been asked for a couple of years now. We finally, fire department's got it spec'd out. We've got it financed through Huntington Bank. Purchase price is around $721,000, so we'd like to get this passed as soon as possible so it can get ordered, so we can get it in 2019 prices before they go up.
Yeah, there's actually a price increase coming.
January 30th.
31st. Yeah.
And just to add to the mayor's comment, I mean, this has been talked about for a couple of years, and last year I was the representative to the Capital Improvements Board, and the Capital Improvements Board finally approved it last year for the purchase to go ahead. So this has been in the works for a while, and it was approved last year.
Any further discussion? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Emergency clause passes 7-0. Now I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 08-2020 as an emergency. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll yield.
Mrs. Stoffer. Discussion. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Ordinance 08-2020 passes 7-0 as an emergency. Finally, ordinance 09-2020.
An ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of not to exceed $7,138,000 of notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying costs of constructing, furnishing, and equipping a new clubhouse at the city's Glen Eagle Golf Course, including related storage, lighting, and drainage facilities, and clearing, improving, and equipping the site.
And that is its first reading. It is not an emergency. Next up is unfinished business, new business, and miscellaneous. Ms. McFerrin.
Well, I always like to bring up the full calendar of events available at the senior center. There are 3 trips coming up, there's movies, so anyone that's interested, you can go online. You can also be subscribed to get the newsletter via your email. The Friends of Twinsburg Parks is meeting on the 21st at 7:30 at Brewster's. There'll be a membership drive for 2020 and discussion about new projects, so anyone interested in the Friends of Twinsburg Parks are welcome to join in at the meeting. And I guess I just want to wish everyone the best year ever. It seems like New Year's was a long time ago, but it's a new month and a new year, so the best 2020, everyone.
Mr. Fury.
I did participate in Shop for the Cop. It was so long ago,
Yeah.
I forgot about it. But it
Yeah.
was the first time I'd done that. It was a fantastic event where, children that with need are taken to a department store and they get to pick out anything they want. Almost $150 is spent on each child, and there's quite a procession. You get straight through all the lights, and we associate with the Stowe Group and take that down, and it was just really a neat time. So appreciate Dan Fido with all the work he did on that. It was a fantastic event. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Stoffer.
I was, same as Mr. Fury here, that was quite an event. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Fido on all the work and time they put into that. Happy New Year to everyone. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mrs. Walker?
I also attended a Shop with a Cop, and I was a kid again. I was just like those kids, running up and down the aisles, trying to pick out some toys, and it just made my heart feel so good that we're still doing this now with all the children, and just thank you for whoever was over that invited me. I will do it again this year. Also for 2020, I'll just have a great 2020, and please live your best life.
Thank you. Mr. Scafidi?
Thank you. Well, I might as well join in too. I was at Shop with the Cop, and it was a great event. I had a great time as well. Also, to the fire chief's comment, you know, there's some children on my street in the neighborhood, and when that fire truck comes down there and Santa Claus gets out, there's nothing better to watch than to see those kids come outside and get their presents. And so thank you to both departments, police and fire, for the great work that you do. Appreciate it.
Great.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Barr?
So not to look backward, but to choose to look forward. I think it's an interesting social commentary that we can get news cameras in here to look at what I think we all can agree was an unfortunate event. There was no news coverage for Shop with a Cop, which I attended along with several of my peers here. And I think that may be representative of the bigger picture of society right now, choosing to look at the negative, choosing to look at every time somebody does something wrong. I'm choosing to sit back and say that I have full faith and confidence in our police department. They do wonderful things for our community. I have full faith and confidence in the administration and our law department. And this was a dark day for the Twinsburg Police Department, but I think that this has been handled. And again, I'm choosing to look forward and look at all the positive events and positive things that these officers, as men and women, in all our public safety services do for the community. We're blessed to have these folks. Again, they're human beings, they make mistakes, and they deal with the consequences of those mistakes. But I have faith and believe in the police department and its administration. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Well said.
Well
Thank you,
said,
Scott.
well said, yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, I would just like to echo what Mr. Barr said. I'm not going to read what I had because no, that's fine. No, because he said it more eloquently than I ever could. So, Ms. Bucci-Grass, I'm sorry. I was just moving right through the agenda. Congratulations. Welcome again.
you.
I'm sorry that
Yes.
I didn't stop the pause. Let's see, I do actually have a couple of additional motions that we have to go through. We're going to, the mayor has requested that we're going to create a subcommittee of council to review and kind of oversee clubhouse operations. So at this time, I would like to make a motion to create that committee. Is there a second?
No second.
Mr. Fury seconds. Any discussion? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
All right, that motion passes 7-0. The initial members of that subcommittee are going to be Ms. McFerrin, Mr. Scafidi, and Mr. Fury. So thank you in advance for the work that you're going to do there. In our last meeting, we also had a discussion about just some housekeeping stuff that we typically do in the December meetings, where we typically move the last meeting in December up to the first. And so I just wanted to kind of get that out of the way to make sure that there was no confusion. So I'd like to make a motion to move the 12/22/2020 meeting to December 1st, 2020. Is there a second?
No second. I'll yield. I dare. Doesn't
Ms.
matter.
Yes. Ms. McFerrin seconds. Any further discussion?
Doesn't matter.
Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. So the meetings in December of 2020 will be on the 1st and the 8th. Obviously, we've got a long time before that happens. And finally, local establishment Rush Hour Bar and Grill was sold over the break, and so part of that comes the liquor license. So I'd like to make a motion that the City Council does not oppose the transfer of the liquor permit from SNB Enterprises LLC, doing business as Rush Hour Bar and Grill, to Buka 2810 LLC, doing business as Rush Hour Grill, located on Ravenna Road, and authorize the clerk to submit the form to the Ohio Division of Liquor Control. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Fury seconds. Any discussion? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I just, I want to let council know I'm really looking forward to 2020. 2019, we really had some challenges, and I think we worked through it, but I'm really looking forward to what we're going to do in 2020. You know, over the holidays, I get approached by a lot of people that just thank me, thank council, and all of our employees for the work that goes on in celebrating all the events that we do between November and January. This community really comes together. I mean, I love the fact that we do Luminosity, that we do a Hanukkah event, that we do all the things that we do. I was standing at the square and just looked out upon thousands of people gathered in the beautiful lights, and just, you know, what a special place we have to live in. And I agree with you, Mr. Barr. It seems that negative stuff seems to rear its head and get life and be screamed at, you know, all around town. But all these positive things that go on in this community, and how blessed we are to live in such a great town, to have people that are so loyal to this community, that work for it, and, you know, put their heart and soul in everything they do every single day. They take pride when, you know, they see residents come together and celebrate and laugh, and, you know, and kids running around. And so I hope we go into 2020 with that image, and looking forward to all the positive things that I know is gonna happen. I just want to share that, because, you know, that kind of we just take it for granted sometimes, and we just expect all this stuff to happen, but there's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes to make Twinsburg what it is. And I'm excited to be in this role, and to work with all you guys and all the people I get to work with on a daily basis. So looking forward to what we can do this year.
Well said, Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Maestros.
Thank you. I just want to thank council for approving me as the mayor's appointment. This will be my 23rd year with the city, 14th as law director. I appreciate that. I enjoy it very much, and I just want to thank Mr. Barr and other members of council for sticking up for the police department tonight. I think it's important for them to hear it, because it seems to be that there's this mutually exclusive, either, you know, beat them up for what happened that one night, or you support them, and you can do both, okay? I think, and that's important, because I know both of these officers since the day they were hired. They're great police officers. As the mayor said, I think if they had to do over again, they would have done something different, and that's what it's about, right? I mean, they're going to learn from this, but again, they're going to be a great asset to this police department going forward. I work with them as a prosecutor. I hear every day how the Stowe Municipal Court respects our police department, and this shouldn't diminish it. I know it does, but, you know, they'll go ahead and work at that and get the trust back from the community, and they'll be fine. But again, I just want to appreciate that and let you know that you guys don't get to talk to the police officers that much, but they do follow council meetings. They do appreciate, you know, you recognizing them and all the good things they do. So thanks on their behalf.
Mrs. Collins.
I have nothing.
Mrs. Butchergrass.
Thank you for another round. I'm just finishing up my second year, so it's been fun.
Got 21 more to go.
All right, so we have no absent members, so we are adjourned.